Well, thank you very much for staying with us. We get into our big stories for today, and we'll be talking about quite a number of issues topical to national life. And joining us for the discussion, Dr. Clement Apak. It has been a while, hasn't it? Member of Parliament for Builsa South. He is also on the Education Committee of Parliament, and Dr. Dixon Adomako-Kisi, Member of Parliament, Anya Soutum. Gentlemen, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Is it the Public Affairs or Public Accounts Committee?
Public Accounts.
Public Accounts Committee.
Yes.
Both of you are on that committee.
Yes, the most important committee of Parliament. I must emphasize, one of the very few that is recognized in the Constitution.
Right.
Because of its mandate.
Okay, we'll get into a bit of that.
We get to look at whether or not the resources given to be used have been used properly for the intended purposes. And if they have not, why not?
It's interesting to have both of you on that committee. But let's quickly do this. Water is life. Water regulates your body temperature and helps keep you alive and kicking. Awake is a premium purified water treated through a strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. We have the perfect sizes that fit for all uses, 330 milliliters and 500 milliliter bottles to fit your pockets and bags, 750 ml for the heavy drinkers, and 1.5 liters for those who always want more. Now, at Awake, we have also introduced our special 19-liter jar for offices and homes. Now, you just need to stay awake with Awake Purified Drinking Water wherever you go. Come and grab a bottle of Awake water and get quality hydration fit for your pocket. Awake Purified Drinking Water, one for life. Remember, every bottle you purchase, for every bottle, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. It's produced by Casapreco. For bulk purchases, please call 0262 351 251. 0262 351 251. You can also call 0272 13373. So there might be an issue with that second number, but just stick to 0262 351 251. Let's get into the studio now and engage our guests, Dr. Apak, together with his colleague also from Anya Soutum, Dr. Dixon Adomako-Kisi. Gentlemen, welcome once more.
Thank you.
Let's start with your constituencies. I like to do this very quickly. What's Builsa South looking like now?
Well, I would say Builsa South is peaceful. We've had a few issues now and then with regards to law enforcement. But the current situation is not that different from what we hear from other parts of the country. I mean, the perennial necessities having changed, the challenges to do with good road infrastructure, good and well-equipped educational institutions manned by adequate numbers of teachers, the need to extend rural electrification to many more communities, youth empowerment, employment issues, things to do with women. And we are particularly worried because the rainy season is just about to begin. And as a rural agricultural-based constituency, the issue of farm inputs vis-a-vis the obvious challenges that we would have in terms of adequate fertilizer is a worry. It's a worry that
which for now
we are contending with, and we don't know how it is going to be
and at high
surmounted.
cost.
Yes,
right.
So it is bound to affect the productivity and the main economic activity that the people.
So your community is a mostly agrarian one.
Yes, I mean grains, rice. You've heard of the Fumbisi Valley, which is actually located in Bedembilisi, and animal husbandry. So we are mostly an agric base. We don't have any industry.
Right.
We don't have a factory. Contrary to the claim that there is a factory in every district, we don't have a factory. So it is mostly public and civil servants.
As you say this, so two things come to mind. Let's start with a bit about a factory. I also feel that in the different districts, maybe to aid a factory coming to you, you might want to single out your, the economic term escapes me, but maybe your niche area.
That's
where
right.
You feel my district
comparative advantage.
Comparative advantage.
Yes,
Your
yes.
niche area. Have you been able to come up with that and maybe fed it to the Secretariat that We feel if you set up a factory for X here, I mean, Commander, one thing comes to mind, sugar.
Yeah.
We have
No, I get your drift. Our comparative advantage certainly is in the area of grains, particularly rice.
Right.
Because we produce a lot of rice. And if we are able to add value to it, clearly the revenue that would go to the farmers would increase. And so, yes, I know that as part of the One District, One Factory project, there has been a decision to establish a rice processing plant. But as to the state of that project and how soon it will be completed, the number of people it will employ is still outstanding. In fact, I filed a question to the Minister for Trade.
Okay.
And when he came to respond, he wasn't specific. He couldn't give specific responses. So yes, on paper, we are supposed to be beneficiaries of a rice processing plant. But has it been given effect? That is where we are. So yes, rice processing would be the comparative advantage.
Okay.
Because we cultivate a lot of rice in Builsa South. Yes.
Right. The second bit I wanted to run by you very quickly, so I can go to Doc as well, has to do with the fertilizer bit you spoke about. And we all know about how the Russo-Ukrainian war has affected the entire world. In the interim, guess who has leveraged his comparative advantage? Dangote, right?
I read about it.
So this has been in the works, and now it's said that in business, you prepare, and when the opportunity makes itself available, you seize it. And that is exactly what Dangote
Smart businessman
is doing. But here we are, we've been caught pants down because we are struggling. And I've spoken to farmers who say they're struggling to get fertilizer, and when they get them, the price is a bit steep on the back of what is happening. How do you react to the fact that we have to go to Nigeria to get this when we are an oil-producing country? It's a derivative, this phosphate, and we can also do same here.
Well, to be honest, I would say very disappointing because as a nation, and given the fact that farming continues to be the mainstay of our people in terms of economic activity, you would have thought that by now we should have our own fertilizer processing plant. And having worked for a president before, I know that when we were in government, a serious effort had been made to establish a fertilizer processing plant in the central region.
What happened?
Well, we were not able to get to it before we left office. So you would have assumed.
When did this effort start? If it were that serious, how
2014, 2015, 2016, we started. You know, these things have to go through processes. So in Shama, specifically, we should have had a fertilizer processing plant. And as you said,
so it never took off.
We were doing, the feasibility had been done, the logistics had been put in place, the partnership agreements were in processes of being signed when we left office. Because we know that fertilizer obviously is important to us. And indeed, it is because we anticipated that someday something like this could happen. I mean, even last year, before the advent of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, fertilizers were very difficult to come by.
Right.
I mean, he knows, even on the floor of Parliament, it was an issue. I raised it. I even wrote an article about how farmers in Builsa South couldn't get it, and when they got it, the price was so exorbitant that they couldn't buy.
Right.
And so a lot of their crop, maize, rice, sorghum, didn't do well. Now, if last year, without the conflict, fertilizer was so difficult to come by,
now with the conflict.
With the conflict now,
right.
The challenge is even going to be exacerbated. But, well, Dangote, as you said, you know, has moved in.
At least I think it's better that we're not getting it, say, from Central Africa or East Africa.
Well, Nigeria is close by.
I mean, Nigeria is close by. That's the
But you see, he's a businessman. It's not a Father Christmas. It's not charity.
No, I'm not saying we're going to get it for free, but I'm saying that if we're bringing it, for example, from up north or from
I agree.
South
I get your point. But the point I'm making is that although it may be close as Nigeria, and I read too that, you know, one of my former bosses, Alhaji Baba Kamara, has been given the sole rights to be the distributor.
Oh yes, I saw that. I saw that.
It can be that close, but yet far. If the state cannot mobilize the needed resources to procure it. So that's the point I'm trying to make. Because part of the challenges last year had to do with the inability of government to mobilize the resources to pay the suppliers.
Okay.
For them to be able to bring in more.
So crucial points you've made. Builsa South is agrarian.
That is correct.
Not much is being done to build agriculture in your part of the country, and of course
Mechanizing it.
Yes. And that is where 1D1F could have fed in. Who knows? The Minister of Food and Agriculture could be watching us. And when I say MP, collaborate with me and let's set up something there. You've also spoken about fertilizer.
No, but let's get it right. Just for the clarification.
Right.
The 1D1F project ostensibly is ongoing. It has not been completed per the response from the minister.
Okay.
So we are hoping
that nothing has taken off yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
But from the response from the minister, the process is ongoing. But he couldn't tell me when it will be completed. He couldn't tell me the tonnage.
Have you seen this facility, or it's not even started?
I have not seen it.
Okay, all right.
I have not seen it.
You've not seen any facility?
I haven't seen it. What I saw cannot be described as
what did you see?
A processing plant.
What did you see?
The structure I saw was almost in the size of what Ghanaians would describe as a 2x4. It didn't look impressive to me. And so that is why when I asked the minister, I asked the tonnage of rice that would be processed by the plant when it is complete, the number of people it would employ, and when it will be completed. He wasn't able to give me specifics.
Let me come to Dr. Adomako Kisi. Before you get to Anyaso Utum and how your constituents are faring, do you have any reactions for Dr. Apak?
Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to be here. And
it's always a pleasure to have you.
He's done something quite remarkable, which is explain the impact of Russia-Ukraine war already. And it's mind-blowing for me hearing him say this.
But is it not common knowledge that, yes, you may have had your woes, but when other things come and impacts them, it's same for every country across the globe.
Some are not even admitting.
The only problem some people have is that to make it seem as though, we didn't have a problem and this came in and that was the problem. We had problems.
We have problems. We will always have problems. But I must commend him for at least making it very simple and showing how it actually relates to his constituency in the domain of fertilizers, which are a huge chunk of some of the imports we get from Europe. And I'm just delighted to hear that, because sometimes when you make those statements and then the alternative opposition party denies the fact that there's no impact whatsoever of the invasion of Ukraine on our economy, I think I'll leave it at that.
That too cannot be fair. I think to be honest, when I listen to both your sides, sometimes what I hear is one is pretending that has not created any problem at all,
That's what
and the other side is pretending the thing has created all our wounds. Sometimes, of course, I'm in the middle knowing that. Definitely,
our argument is that
you cannot have what is going on in Russia.
This conflict began in February. So naturally, we cannot hang all our woes on the neck of Russia and Ukraine. February.
We never will.
Most of these issues were with us even before February. I told you of the issue of the fertilizer.
They predate Nkrumah.
As of last year.
They predate Kwame Nkrumah.
But how is Anyaso Utum faring? Very briefly, in some
so
maybe a minute
Anyaso
or so.
Utum, our population, once again, over 300,000 people. We're supposed to be largely service industry. Because we don't have land at all. Granted, our biggest concern is our road network. Huge infrastructural deficit. And in fact, it's one of the unfortunate things I inherited in terms of drains and then road infrastructure issues. But we'll keep forging ahead, and I'll keep knocking on all the doors I need to knock on so that we are ahead, we are acknowledged, and some efforts are made. I'm also fortunate that we have a former MP who's in cabinet and also does a small thing to remind presidency of our needs. So I'll continue to also thank former MP Honorable Shelia Koboche for the efforts she's also making to push our road infrastructure development.
Lucky you to have someone in there who can, because
Voice,
I know it's a slippery slope. It's a tricky terrain.
He's lucky. His former MP is witty.
Has some clout.
Oh, definitely so.
But what he carries on his shoulders is nothing to play with. 300,000.
His constituency
and I keep saying that we have an issue in terms of the equitable distribution of resources in the country. And I really will continue to make a case that some constituencies need more attention and more resources, not necessarily because we are more Ghanaian, but because of our size and population. So if you are putting even one district hospital in his constituency, I would need two. Per the volume of people.
Per the number of people. Some would also tell you we don't have a huge population, but when you look at the land size, it's kind of like Canada. Look at the space and look at the people in there. You will still need to, it's a very sparse development, so you would still need to situate things. So I get it. There are different dynamics to look at, but that is the whole bit about nation building, right? That is something that I feel
but even in
some countries have got right, and even in our country, though we are not a federal, because we're waiting
I will use my example.
Unitary system.
My example is in direct opposition to what he said.
Really?
And I also believe there is a need to increase allocations to my constituency precisely for that.
Right.
The population is small, but the settlement pattern is dispersed.
How large is your constituency's population?
Oh, as of the last census, I think we are somewhere around 45,000 or so.
45,000?
Yes.
That's about a sixth of
That's what I'm saying. But you see, the settlement pattern is the dispersed settlement pattern. So the cost of the provision of services is higher.
So that feeds into what I was saying.
Exactly.
So small but very sparse. Exactly. So it means you must still situate more facilities to be able to reach the people, else you will not get to them.
Yes.
Else people would have to trek. Maybe someone has an emergency and has to trek 3 kilometers to the nearest.
But you see, in my case, sometimes 10 kilometers.
The World Health,
healthcare
metrics are largely about doctor to patient ratio.
Right.
For a reason.
Right.
Or even nurses to patient ratio for a reason. And yes, the sparsity is important. Some may have to cross rivers, some may, that plays into it. Because I used to work with VRA in Akosombo, and we had settlements that are far, and some had to use the, canoe and all that. And it plays into how early they arrive for delivery, labor, and all of that. But I really still think that per the status quo, some extra, it's like doing statistics. There are coefficients that need to come into play.
So some balances have to come into play.
And I agree with both of you. In principle, I agree with both of you. This one cap fits all.
Right.
It shouldn't be the case.
Right.
I agree that they ought to be.
I've sat here and engaged some MPs who have said before, I don't know whether you were on that day, but who have said before that
the common fund.
Yes.
For example,
myself and
it should be looked at. Look at the size, the population, and all of that.
And all these other factors that I'm also raising.
Right.
The nature of the settlement. How easy it is to situate services in places that will be accessible to the people.
Right.
So you can't say that because the population is small and they are dispersed, they shouldn't get electricity.
Right. So there are different dynamics. But
for the sake
of time, just to wrap quickly on this point.
I'm in a dilemma, for instance. I have one electoral area. Roads are very bad. They also need a health facility. So I'm supposed to think between
We've had the year of roads for quite a
while.
Well,
this is the second year
it hasn't touched me much yet.
It hasn't touched you much yet.
So I'm glad he has confessed.
Oh, no, back to my point. 10 kilometers everywhere, 10 kilometers in my constituency is a drop in a bucket.
Right.
So my key point is that in looking at the numbers, more people will use the road more so than the health facility.
Right.
So what do I do? Is it health first or is it the roads?
Right.
And these are some of the tough challenges.
Right.
I'm almost inclined to think
I don't envy you guys, to be honest. I know you are mired in a whole lot, but more power to your elbows in your respective constituencies.